Cold smoke rises over shattered fields as Russia's economy strains under the weight of a war it can no longer afford. What began as a push for strategic dominance has turned into a financial drain spreading through every sector of the country. Factories diverted to weapons production run day and night, but each shell produced replaces investment once meant for homes, schools, and modern industries. According to the IMF, Russia's military spending has surged to more than 6% of GDP in 2024, a level economists warn is unsustainable for a shrinking labor force. Families feeling the pressure remind us that behind every statistic is a life quietly unraveling. The government keeps pouring money into the conflict, masking shortages with subsidies and emergency controls. Yet inflation erodes salaries faster than officials can reassure the public. As one former finance minister admitted, war spending always looks manageable right before it collapses. And beneath the patriotic slogans, businesses face rising taxes, restricted imports, and supply chains held together by improvisation rather than stability. The longer the war economy runs, the more irreversible the damage becomes. The real question now is not how Russia fights, but what happens when the economic engine finally seizes. A cold, metallic silence hangs over Moscow's financial district, where once busy servers now struggle to replace the Western systems that vanished overnight. Sanctions didn't just block transactions. They severed Russia from the arteries of global technology, banking, and high-value imports. With over half of its foreign reserves frozen and more than 1,000 multinational companies gone, the country is trying to rebuild an economy with pieces that no longer fit together. According to the World Bank, Russia's high-tech imports fell by more than 50% after 2022, crippling industries from aviation to medicine. And for ordinary Russians caught between rising prices and shrinking choices, the uncertainty feels like a weight no family should have to carry. Workarounds have emerged through shadow fleets, parallel imports, and rerouted components. But every detour multiplies costs and erodes reliability. Even the banking sector, once proud of its digital innovation, now relies on limited domestic systems and unstable foreign partners. As one economist from the OECD warned, sanctions don't stop an economy instantly. They slowly remove its ability to control its future. And that future grows more unpredictable with each missing chip, blocked payment, and failing workaround. The question is, what deeper structural cracks emerge next? Snow drifts silently over abandoned playgrounds and empty apartment blocks, a quiet testament to a nation shrinking from within. Russia's demographic decline is no longer a statistic. It is a crisis shaping every corner of society. Birth rates have plummeted while mortality rises, leaving fewer young workers to sustain pensions, industries, and the very tax base that funds the state. According to the United Nations, Russia's population has fallen by nearly 1.5 million in just the past 3 years, a rate unmatched in any major economy outside wartime. And behind these numbers are families facing impossible choices, parents deciding whether to leave the country for opportunity, children growing up in communities hollowed out by absence, grandparents left to shoulder care alone. The war amplifies this loss, pulling men into battle and triggering waves of emigration that further erode the workforce. Health crises, substance abuse, and limited access to modern medicine deepen the spiral. Economists warn that no amount of monetary policy can replace a generation lost to conflict and exodus. One demographer notes, when people vanish faster than they're born, the economy loses its pulse. As Russia confronts this invisible hemorrhage, the looming question becomes stark. How do you govern a country when the very people needed to sustain it are disappearing? Black smoke curls from Siberian rigs into a gray sky, a stark reminder that Russia's wealth is tethered to a single commodity. For decades, oil and gas have been the lifeblood of the economy, funding everything from infrastructure to social programs. But this dependency is now a trap, leaving the country vulnerable to global price swings, sanctions, and declining demand. When oil prices tumble, So, does the government's ability to respond to crises, creating a precarious balancing act between survival and strategy? According to the IMF, hydrocarbons account for nearly 40% of Russia's federal budget, a reliance few other major economies carry today. Ordinary citizens feel the consequences. Subsidized energy is stretched thin, heating costs rise, and industries outside the energy sector struggle for investment. Families in remote regions watch their futures shrink as local economies falter under a single, volatile market. Attempts at diversification have been slow and underfunded, leaving innovation and domestic manufacturing lagging behind global competitors. As one energy analyst put it, when your economy moves at the pace of oil, every drop counts and every dip hurts. With each fluctuation in global markets, Russia loses another measure of control, teetering on the edge of economic instability. The deeper question looms: can a nation so bound to one resource ever escape its grasp? ChatGPT said, "Dim light filters through the grand halls of Moscow's ministries, where golden chandeliers illuminate files that never see scrutiny. Corruption has seeped into every corner of Russia's governance, turning institutions into instruments of survival for the elite rather than mechanisms of progress. Public funds vanish into opaque networks controlled by oligarchs, while promises of reform remain hollow." According to Transparency International, Russia ranks 137th out of 180 countries in the 2024 Corruption Perceptions Index, a stark measure of systemic decay. For ordinary citizens, the consequences are personal. Hospitals lack essential equipment, schools struggle to pay teachers, and small businesses are crushed under layers of arbitrary fines and favoritism. One mother recounts how her local clinic closed after funds were siphoned, leaving her family to travel hundreds of kilometers for care, a story repeated across the country. Attempts at top-down reform falter against entrenched networks of power, where loyalty outweighs competence and accountability is an abstract concept. Economists warn that an economy built on corruption cannot respond to shocks, and when combined with sanctions, war, and demographic decline, it creates a self-reinforcing spiral. As one expert noted, you cannot patch an economy when the very system allocating resources is broken. With governance paralyzed by greed and fear, the question grows urgent: how long before Russia's entire system reaches a breaking point? Banknotes scatter across a dimly lit street corner, their value slipping as quickly as the ruble itself. Russia's currency has become a barometer of an economy in free fall, battered by sanctions, war spending, and capital flight. Once seen as stable in regional terms, the ruble now wavers against the dollar and euro, creating uncertainty that seeps into every household. Inflation erodes wages faster than any government promise can cushion, forcing families to choose between food, medicine, and heating. According to the IMF, Russia's consumer prices surged over 12% in 2024, a level that dramatically undermines purchasing power and domestic confidence. Banks tighten lending, investors flee, and savings vanish into an invisible void, leaving citizens to navigate a financial landscape that feels increasingly hostile. One small business owner recalls empty store shelves and skyrocketing costs, whispering, "It's like we're watching money disappear in real time." Government interventions, from interest rate hikes to temporary capital controls, offer only fleeting relief, unable to counteract systemic weaknesses. As the ruble flounders, the nation's control over its economy slips further, with every failed stabilization attempt eroding trust and deepening desperation. The pressing question now is not whether the currency will recover, but what fractures its collapse will expose next, setting the stage for even greater instability. Dim streetlights cast long shadows over silent city squares, where citizens move cautiously, aware that every word and action is watched. Russia's state has grown rigid, its authoritarian grip tightening under the guise of stability. Innovation, debate, and reform struggle to survive in an environment where fear dictates behavior and dissent is punished. According to the World Bank, countries with high political risk and low institutional transparency, like Russia, experience 30 to 40% slower productivity growth, a stark metric of a nation unable to modernize. Ordinary people feel the weight. Entrepreneurs abandon ideas, scientists leave laboratories, and communities adapt not by thriving, but by avoiding scrutiny. One teacher recalls being warned against discussing global events in class, whispering, "We educate, but we fear what comes next." Centralized decision-making prioritizes control over competence, leaving sectors from healthcare to technology lagging behind global standards. Economic shocks cannot be absorbed because the system cannot pivot. Sanctions, war, and demographic decline amplify the consequences of rigidity. Analysts warned that authoritarianism may preserve power in the short term, but it suffocates adaptation, innovation, and resilience. The machinery of fear now locks the nation into cycles of crisis that grow with every unheeded warning. The pressing question becomes clear: how does a country survive when its own structure prevents it from changing? A gray dawn breaks over Moscow, light glinting off empty streets where uncertainty hangs heavier than frost. Russia stands at the edge of a future it cannot predict, its economic and social systems fragmented, vulnerable, and opaque. Each policy move feels reactive, constrained by sanctions, war, demographic decline, and structural rigidity. According to the OECD, Russia's projected GDP growth for the next 5 years is highly volatile, with estimates swinging between contraction and minimal recovery, an unprecedented range for a major economy. Citizens bear the brunt of this unpredictability. Families cannot plan for education, healthcare, or retirement, while entrepreneurs hesitate to invest in a climate where rules shift overnight. One small business owner recounts, "We make plans for the year, but by next month, nothing is certain anymore." Currency instability, energy dependency, and governance failures compound, creating a cascade of uncertainty that spreads into every layer of society. Analysts warn that when a nation cannot anticipate its own trajectory, long-term recovery becomes nearly impossible, and crises feed on themselves. In a country where control has slipped at every level, from economy to governance to demographics, the only certainty is unpredictability. And as Russia stares into this uncharted future, one haunting question remains: can a nation survive when it can no longer foresee the consequences of its own actions?